It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here.
With Barnet Bain. Good moment, everyone.
Good moment.
How are you, Freeman?
Feeling good.
Nice shirt.
Thanks, my friend.
A lot of blue.
It is a lot of blue.
Blue sky, blue moon.
Feeling bloom.
Feeling blue, blue t-shirt.
It's all blue today.
It is all blue today.
Oh, we have a theme.
Good. We got something to work
It's
off.
the blue theme. I like the French films, the blue series. The whole blue and...
Those are good films. Were they French or were they Polish?
I thought they were French.
Red, white, and blue you're talking about.
Yeah.
Polish.
Polish.
But French.
It's good you're a filmmaker.
Well, for three people listening to the audience, in our audience, recognize that.
We know what we're talking about.
So, I just want to say that it's it's good to be back. I was away for a couple of weeks. It's really nice to be back, and it's nice to kind of settle into the flow of being back.
I like that you've got to the place where it's nice, because when I talked to you last, you were sort of discombobulated. You had a tight stomach, and you were like, I don't know, jet lag, and I keep waking up in the middle of the night, and it was the awkward transition back. Yeah.
Well, I must say I'm still a little bit jet lagged. But I feel very flowy and
good.
And there's a sort of there's a sweetness to how I'm feeling the world at the moment.
I love that. You know, that's my intention. I'm going on vacation next week, as you know. And my intention is to come back, because oftentimes when I come back from vacation, re-entry, as it were, is harsh. Like, there's a million emails to answer, and there's like all this demand, and I almost dread going on vacation, not because I don't want the vacation. I just don't want to come back. I love the idea that you're flowy and
it's very challenging. It can be very, very challenging to come back. You know, you drop into a frequency of ease. Yeah. And then come back, and the tendency is to want to default back into our strategies. Our strategy. Our
dramas, our narratives.
Yes, all of our blueprinting of how to handle life. And I am very, very pleased to say that I came back and I'm flowing along.
I'm the same guy.
Without any drama.
That's
so
beautiful.
I want to speak a little bit more about this with our guest. We're really, really thrilled today to have our dear friend Lama Dawa Tarchin Phillips. Dawa is the founder and a board member of the Institute of Compassionate Awareness in Santa Barbara. He's also the president and CEO of Empowerment Holdings, which is a coaching and consulting firm that counsels professionals and business owners in mindfulness. Mindfulness-based leadership, particularly. He is also best known, certainly in the Southern California area, as the resident teacher of the Santa Barbara Bodhi Path Buddhist Center. And he lives not too far away, fortunately for me.
And he was on vacation with you.
He was on vacation with me. So I just want to check in and see how your jet lag is doing, Dawa.
Hello, guys. Hi, Freeman. Hi, Barnet.
Hey, buddy.
Good to be on your show.
How is your re-entry?
Oh, the re-entry has been wonderful because I've actually never left.
That's why we had you on. We wanted you to be the signpost, what do you call it, the poster child for how to just never, just not create these dramatic shifts.
Well, wait a minute. Are you back or are you still in Europe?
No, I'm back in the U.S. I'm being facetious because obviously we're talking about living in the moment, and that moment is the same whether you're in Croatia or you're in Santa Barbara.
Very, very true.
But it isn't, and that's where I get so befuddled. I'm striving. I'm striving to make the moment exactly what it is and not compartmentalize and make one moment my vacation moment and one moment my home moment, my work moment, and all these little segments of me. Oh, I'm being dad now. That's a different me. And this is, I think, a huge challenge for a lot of folks.
A recipe for struggle and suffering, and I'm sure, Dawa, that you have something to say about that.
Yes, well, I mean, as you know, we're members of a leadership council called the Transformational Leadership Council, and we had a conference recently, and really what we're focusing on is help people understand how they can live more in the moment and cultivate that congruency, where they are really feeling grounded, feeling aligned, whether they are at work, whether they're at home, whether they are with their families or with their colleagues, just a deep sense of being at home in their human life, in their human expression.
I love it. Or even, let's even perhaps turn the volume up on that. I was recently working with our mutual friend, Susan Leahy, and we decided to do the work. It was a nice day. So we went out to the back of her home onto the sort of veranda. She's got a beautiful veranda in the back of her house. And we were playing and kind of goofing off and working. And I said to her in the middle of it, I said, I feel like I'm on vacation. Like, this doesn't feel like work. And that was very organic, just came out of my mouth. And I thought about that for a moment. Wow, what if I can have that quality of playfulness and fun and ease and so forth in a moment of work? You know, who knew, right?
What if that is in fact our birthright?
Yeah.
These distinctions of work as drudgery and as struggle are artificial. Dawa?
Yeah, I am completely convinced that it is your birthright, and that in fact we are, we come plenty endowed with gifts and talents that if we are willing to contribute and unleash them onto the world, we can step into what is called the flow, where we are in contribution, but at the same time we don't have to bend ourselves out of shape to have joy and stability in our life.
So I guess the question I have, conceptually, I'm 100% with you. I'm totally convinced conceptually, but the part of me that isn't totally convinced.
Experiential.
Right.
The part that's still struggling with re-entry.
That's right. That's the part that we, at least me, I know lots of people look to you because this is where your work can be so helpful. How do you help people who have compartmentalized and they understand conceptually that it's their birthright, but it's only concept, or maybe it's concept most of the time in various, they have glimpses, such as I had with Susan Leahy on the veranda. How do you help them? How do you help them to integrate so that they're not having these dramatic, shifts and having to constantly try to find their groundedness and their flow?
Well, a really important concept to understand is what in 2008 was published by an American psychologist under the name of mindset. The woman's name is Carol Dweck.
Yeah, Carol Dweck. Great book.
We should have her on.
Yep.
I can definitely recommend publicizing that work to your readers, because I do believe that it is beginning to change education, and it's beginning to change just the way human beings understand themselves. But what's important about it is that we are operating under mindsets, and we adopt those mindsets based on how we interact with our environment in the early years of our lives. And according to the research that we published, some of those mindsets we refer to as growth mindsets, which means that we are aware that in fact our main capacity as human beings is to keep learning and growing in all aspects of our life, and settle into the process of unfolding our understanding and our capacity throughout our entire life, versus the idea of a fixed mindset where we believe we come endowed with a certain fixed set of qualities, fixed sets of talents and traits, and fixed sets of intelligence or discernment. And depending on where we find ourselves, and most of us have a mixed amount of growth mindsets and fixed mindsets in various areas of our lives, but depending on where we find ourselves, then we experience those mindsets as limiting, and in fact, we become entrenched in the desire to reaffirm our pre-existing beliefs, our pre-existing mindset or understanding of how the world is, or how our life has to be, or what is possible and what is not possible. And yet, in fact, if we look around, we're constantly presented with people who are doing exactly those things that we think are not possible. And so we must acknowledge that even though we think something is not possible, in fact, we see examples in the world of people who are doing exactly that which we believe is not possible. So we have to get to a place where we are willing to question our fixed ideas, and we are willing to question the constructs that we have created for ourselves as to how the world works, so that we can rejoin, let's say, the process of learning and growing that all of us at the core of our being are meant to experience.
Loosen our grip on reality. Barnet, you've been talking about this, the loosening a little bit.
Definitely.
Yes, kind of a sense of surrender.
Yes, there's a surrender, and it goes hand in hand with an awareness that the mind has a story about itself. It is constantly seeking to reaffirm that story and to develop that story. It is constantly chattering away and assessing itself and trying to impose its story. And the awareness of that is liberating, because there is something, of course, there is an observer that is now in a relationship with mind, that has an awareness of mind as a self-promoting, self-serving a calibrator. And at that point, we begin to realize that, well, mind is an artificial bubble. It's a thought bubble. And what is more true is whatever is occurring in the moment, in the now, whatever is arising. Just this is more true than any of the narrative that the mind generates.
I like the quote, Barnet, that you came up with last time. Stop making sense and start sensing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
There are two predominant needs, if you allow me to elaborate a moment. There are two predominant needs that this fixed mindset function addresses. And the first one is our need for orientation. We want to have a sense of where we are on the time-space continuum. And fixing reference points is one way to gain some orientation. And so we get caught in this process of fixation because it gives us orientation, which we like and which we need. The second part is identity. Fixed mindset also allow us to have a stronger sense of personal identity. And so in this process of breaking open some of those fixations, we have to reconcile our need for orientation and our need for identity. And I think one of the reasons why mindfulness practitioners or also meditators over time develop the skill to be adept at personal transformation is because the ability to be present and to stabilize our mind through mindfulness allows us to rely less on fixation for our stability and for our sense of orientation. And secondly, our willingness to evolve, or our willingness to surrender our identity of today for what might emerge as our new being tomorrow, and the trust and the confidence in that process is also something that develops over time. So mindfulness holds the key to this process.
That is, in my own experience, in the opportunities and challenges of my own growth, it's the latter one, the willingness to let go of narratives and let go of stories, that is the greater challenge.
It's the letting go of the things I've known in favor of the learning, which is the entire, premise of the growth mindset, is that it's an orientation towards something that could emerge or evolve, rather than tracking back, as you were saying, Barnet, to a single narrative and then organizing everything to make that true, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Dawa, you have anything to comment on that?
Yes, I think you're on. I think that the one, how to say, the one culprit that arises again and again for people is fear. And somehow we've created a culture where fear has been given a dominant position that it really doesn't deserve. I think we give fear way too much credit. And I think we've abdicated way too much of the joy of life to fear. I think we've given fear way too much control over our life. And one of the things that we focus on with our leadership work really is the cultivation of fearlessness and the ability to tease apart the mechanisms of how fear controls the mind and how fear controls our lives, so that people, in fact, can unmask that culprit and stop giving so much credence to the fear in their life.
I fear that we have to break away for a word from our very, very wonderful sponsors. When we return with Dawa Phillips, we will go more deeply into the culture of fear. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Barnet Bain. I'm here with Freeman Michaels and our guest, Dawa Phillips. So before the break, Dawa, you alluded to the culture of fear, and I want to dig a little more deeply into that. It's so true that people feel their aliveness through their experience of fear, and that we have been conditioned, and we continue to, our conditioning continues to support aliveness through being scared out of our wits. We're scared half to death, and so we feel alive. There is, of course, the really radical option of feeling alive because we're connected to wonder and joy and flow and ecstasy. But
most of us have learned to opt for the former.
Yes, we've learned to cover our heads. So
or cover our butts is the more common way of saying it.
What light can you shine on that?
Well, it may have to do with the fact that we have, because either way we're experiencing a sense of vulnerability. And that sense of vulnerability can either trigger our adrenaline and our fight or flight response and overwhelm our nervous system with the stress response, so that we experience our sense of aliveness out of worry and anxiety. Or that sense of vulnerability can be interpreted as just a unconditional sense of openness. And then even though we again are faced with the same level of uncertainty, but yet we experience it as aliveness, as joy, as creativity, as flow, simply because we're open to the processes of life. So I think it's our relationship to vulnerability that we have to examine, and we have to understand that we have a choice, that vulnerability is definitely something that comes with the human experience, and yet that it doesn't have to be interpreted as a negative thing that we have to seek to protect, but that we can learn to develop the inner qualities and the discernment and the life skills that allow us to live open and with a sense of vulnerability, even in the face of uncertainty. Yeah.
But it is as you say, it does require cultivating. It doesn't. It is not something that we passively are going to receive. We have to make a willful choice to receive those gifts. We have to at least show up in that way. And then it occurs to me, and I'd like your thoughts on this, that a relationship with joy and a relationship with flow is a relationship with the body. It's an embodied state. It is less a thought state in the way that fear is. Fear largely is a mental experience.
Yes. Well, it's a misinterpretation oftentimes of the process of how the mind works, because we tend to think that we first have to have a certain feeling or a certain sensation in order to then make a certain decision how to act or how to be. And so if we feel a sense of trust or if we feel a sense of joy, we then decide that now we're going to be open, we're going to be relaxed, and we're going to be confident and trusting. And so to some degree, it puts us into a reactive mode where we think that our life basically unfolds as a reaction to events that are little or none under our control. And
extrinsic, extrinsic events.
Extrinsic events.
Mm-hmm.
And what you are referring to, this ability to make a decision and to, in fact, exercise a form of will, for lack of a better word, and to choose to live in trust and to choose to live in joy and to choose to live in love, even though we are not living in a world in which everything is predictable, certain, or unchanging, then that is a choice we have to evolve into making. And once we've made that choice, in fact, we've turned the cycle around. We've now are beginning to live the life that we decide that we want to live, that is under our domain, and we are taking responsibility for it. And then even though life's events may throw us curveballs, nevertheless, our fundamental attitude is under our domain.
So recently, I went on a cleanse, a detox cleanse. And for several days leading up to this 3-day all juice cleanse, green juice cleanse, I was eliminating toxins. I mean, caffeine, alcohol, whatever. And then I did 3 days. And then afterwards, I slowly started to just reintegrate things back into my diet. What I found was sugar, salt, the everyday foods, if you will, were so intense I could hardly eat them. And what struck me about it, because this is the analogy for mindfulness, you know, what you were saying earlier, Dawa, that there's a valuing of vulnerability. That vulnerability becomes very valuable from the mindset that you're looking at it versus the fear and the control, which is a expression of the fear, right? The trying to control the vulnerability and control outcomes, and you know, everything is measured and organized in a sort of hierarchical way, better, worse, whatever. And what I find is, because our culture, the fear culture and the control culture and this kind of fixed culture involves such a profound numbing of the nuances, you know, which mindfulness brings out, that it becomes really challenging. I can't go to most movies. You know, action films are really overwhelming to me. I'm not an amusement park person. I'm not. You know, what you were saying earlier, Dawa, about people, you know, or maybe it was what Barnet was saying about, you know, the extremes. So this is what I want to speak to, that mindfulness is a beautiful gift, but it's almost, it feels sometimes incompatible with the way our society is structured. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think it refers also to a classical teaching of the Buddha that sense perceptions inherently, if they are dualistic in nature, are a painful experience. And on a subtle level, when you really look at the refined mind and the way that mind encounters experiences, we're constantly trying to assess whether this is an experience that is a threat to us and something that we have to protect ourselves against, or whether this experience is something that might benefit us in some way and that we should try to absorb, integrate, or attach to and identify with. And so on a subtle level, the mind is in a very fluctuating, uncertain state of constantly have to reevaluate its relationship to the experience and its relationship to the perception. And for most people, that happens on an unconscious level. And so they just experience a sense of dis-ease and a lack of really feeling at home in the process of making experiences. And so mindfulness then can begin to really elucidate that entire process and allow us to resolve our relationship with experiences and the relationship between mind and its perception. But that can take some time. And in the meantime, what you're saying is absolutely true. People feel what the Buddha described as the sense of being on fire, or the experience of being overwhelmed by sensory input.
Mm.
With mindfulness comes the end of a particular relationship with experience. And you have spoken from time to time about death, about mindful death. And it is not lost on me that that the ending of our relationships to particular kinds of and forms of experience involves conscious dying. And I wonder if you have anything to add to that.
Well, there's something to be said about the assumption of duality, that somehow life and us are two different things. And life is what happens to us rather than we are an expression of the totality of life. And when we think that life is something that happens to us, we are in the state that I described before, where we're constantly struggling to assess whether we need to protect ourselves or attach ourselves. And yet that is an unexamined belief that most of us have and that we live under because no one at an early stage in our life explained to us that, in fact, we're not separate from life and that, in fact, our own life is an expression of a process of totality of unfolding experience. And so as we relax from some of that fixation, it can appear as an experience of psychological death. But really what we're talking about is just a dissolution of conceptual representation, which means we have created a lot of representation about ourselves and the world in which we live that is inaccurate. And when we relax through a practice like mindfulness or a practice like meditation, we begin to get a notion of the fact that a lot of those concepts we have may not be accurate. And then it's time to cultivate a deeper sense of trust and, in fact, a deeper sense of inquiry and a willingness to learn about who we really are and where we really come from and where we're really going, and to also develop an appreciation for the non-duality of our life, for the fact that even though it appears as if we are separate from the rest of life and that things are happening to us, we are really profoundly interconnected. And even if we are able to completely let go and really relax into our own nature, we find that, in fact, there's nothing that can truly harm us and nothing that can truly be lost because on a fundamental level, we are not separate.
That's beautiful. That's a big learning curve. To go back to I agree with you 100% conceptually, and then moment to moment, well, that again. And for me, I'm still experiencing a bit of split, if you will, where much of my life operates in the subtlety and in the choice and in the flow. And it's almost juxtaposed with a world that still feels like it's coming at me, and it's just a lot. The concentration of intensity that comes, at least from my perspective, with the numbing out that I have personally done and so many other people have done, where then what happens is we turn up the volume, increase the sugar and turn up the volume on the anxiety, because that's what it takes to feel when numbing out has been the priority. So, I love what you're saying. And, obviously you know me enough that I've committed myself to it, but I'm recognizing in moments just how challenging it is when we bump up against, the other version, the sort of collective experience.
Well, the interesting thing is, Freeman, if you make that choice of turning up the volume, is that the world turns up the volume as well.
Right. Well, I'm saying the volume's already up. My job sometimes is to find ways to quiet the noise, right?
Well, if that's the whole thing, if we choose to protect ourselves from our own being, then the noise of that being becomes louder. Yeah, the knocking on the door, the ringing on the doorbell, all of that noise becomes increased, which means we're experiencing life as more and more forceful, trying to force its way into our.
The whispers become shouts, become screams.
Yeah, I'm turning them back to whispers. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas what we find is that those people who choose to cultivate openness and to not numb out and to in fact develop intimacy with the power and the force of life in real time, the cutting edge of consciousness. Those people, in fact, experience a rather profound sense of calm and a profound sense of peace. So there is something counterintuitive there, that the more we open, the more we find reality to be peaceful in its essence, where the more we defend ourselves, the more we experience reality as aggressive.
Embrace the chaos.
We learn how to dance in the hail.
In the hail. Hey, listen, speaking of dancing, we have to take a dance break. And before we do, though, because we're going to be saying goodbye, Dawa, to you.
But we're going to talk behind your back.
Give our folks your info, because I know that you teach regularly, and this is an opportunity for our folks, perhaps, if they're in the Santa Barbara area, to catch you, or to folks who are in business to get the opportunity to do mindfulness in their office and so forth. Please give us all of that information.
Okay, very, very happy to do so. So you can reach my company, Empowerment Holdings, at info@empowermentholdings.com. You can call us at 805-680-3988. And you can find the Institute of Compassionate Awareness at www.compassionateawareness.org. And you can find the Bodhipath Buddhist Center of Santa Barbara under bodhipath.org/SP.
Beautiful.
And it will be wonderful to encounter you. Cutting-edge consciousness and the way to integrate that into modern life is exactly what we do, both on a professional level as well as on a philanthropic level through the Institute and in classical spiritual training at the Bodhipath Center.
Beautiful.
Yes, and on a party level, I can tell you.
That's right. All right.
Well, nobody said cutting-edge consciousness was a boring thing.
It is not a boring thing.
No,
It is absolutely joy-filled, and it was really a joy to have you with us today, Dawa. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.
Always thoughtful and inspiring.
For our listeners, we'll be back in one moment. And oh, by the way, if you missed any of that, you can always get details on Dawa's whereabouts on the Cutting Edge Consciousness site. We will be back after these words.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And we're back on Cutting Edge Consciousness. From Michael's here with Barnet Bain.
Back indeed.
Go with the flow. Go with the flow, man.
Always wonderful and enlightening.
I love that guy.
To hear from Dawa Phillips.
Yeah, he's a great teacher.
He is a great teacher.
Yeah, I love that book too. Carol Dweck. We got to remember to get her on. She wrote the book Mindful. Mindset. Yep, mindset.
Yeah, we will get her on.
A mindful mindset. Hey.
Wow.
That's my new book.
New book
Mindful
from Freeman Michaels.
We'll co-author
Mindset. You and Carol Dweck could
No, you, I, and Dawa.
Ah, and Dawa.
Yeah, why not?
So, always wonderful to hear from Dawa.
That fixation, if I can give up one thing, I'm willing to release it. my fixation.
The fixations.
It ought to be a certain way. Well, maybe it oughtn't to be. And that whole fixation on outcome, that's one of those brutal things that I'm so quick to think how I want it to look versus, we've talked about this. Find the parts that we like and let it become something, without having to crunch it down to, again, one of 4 options. It's a bad bargain. But I still do that occasionally.
Why?
I don't know why. It's a habit, Barnet.
I know.
It's just a habit.
I think that we sometimes make these proclamations to ourselves and sometimes to others, these bold proclamations of how it is or how it isn't, or what is the next enlightened peace and what isn't, and how should we behave, and
it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. It's
another control game and another story-making machine, right? It's another
control game, or it can be a discovery of all of the intricate, multidimensional layers of who I am and how they are all operating and all functioning and how they have been generating my experience of being separate from the enchantment, the non-duality of the way Dawa and others refer to it. This enchantment, this enchanted state of knowing that I am connected. I can't bypass my conditioning of logic, and I can't just bypass all of that, but I can ladle into my experience an attention to all of the ways that I am connected and am in the experience of the enchantment. I can increasingly recognize my own blueprinting, my own fixations in the ways of the world.
Yeah.
And both beautiful and not so beautiful. I can own them all, and there's something very powerful about that for me. And it feels less of a curriculum. I'm not comfortable with a curriculum anymore, and I'm grateful for my for the days of curriculum. I'm very grateful for it, but it's time for me to put that down.
I love the language of developmental. The idea, even that I've done a lot of figuring. I've figured a lot out, enough to know that I want to stop figuring things out.
Enough to know that the figuring muscle, is only calibrated to figure.
That's right.
And if I hold that the enchantment is only about figuring, then I am equipped. But it's so clear to me now, for the first time, that there's so much more to life than my hard drive can compute.
It's great. It's great. Stop making sense and start sensing.
Stop making sense.
Start sensing. And feeling. I feel.
I was listening to that. I got that from David Byrne from Talking Heads, and I heard him while we were away, and I was just listening to that old album, and it's like genius. I mean, he was mainstreaming these ideas 20 years before I'd ever had a thought of them.
This is the artist's thing, the artist.
This is the artist's role.
The artist that comes out who's doing something new. That's the difference, right? Because you've made this point many times that so much of the art is really not imaginative. It's a structured imaginative. It's going back to the same 4 themes and just, same 4 chords and just reversing the order or something. Whereas these artists arrive that blow open a portal, and how they do it even. I mean, most of them, when you ask them about their genius song, they tell you that, it was an accident. It was just, the words fit together. I love American Pie. The guy's like, everyone's like, what does it mean? And he's like, I don't know. I love that story.
And again, that's the only song you know from Don
McLean.
Is American Pie.
No, Starry Night.
Talking Heads, I think that if we ever had the opportunity to ask David Byrne, that he would be very informed and very articulate about his passions, his preoccupations.
If he's still alive, let's get him on the show. He's alive, right? He's not passed away. Yeah, sure. Let's have him on the show. See if we can find him. If someone out there knows him,
that
let us
is
know.
not accidental. And I know in my own work, the themes that I explore, these are not accidental.
Yes.
How the gifts that come in the exploration of them, those are gifts.
Yes.
But where I'm calibrated, that is highly intentional.
Yeah, where you're aiming, and this really prioritizing, towards awakening.
Yeah.
That context of there's something more.
Yeah.
Is powerful, and it will take you into our uncharted territory. It will.
I just took myself into uncharted territory. What our listeners can't know is that I just somehow managed to jam my foot into the wastepaper basket below my desk.
And it's stuck there.
It's like,
that's nice.
How did that happen?
Oh, that's nice.
That's fun. There's some uncharted territory.
How do we get nuanced about that?
Yep.
What's the meaning behind that? So
fun.
Fun, playful, joyful, goofy, and mindful, and paying attention during the whole thing. Paying attention to the part of us that's paying attention. Paying attention to the part of us that's fixated and likes to get fixated, and sort of loosening that as best we can, so that more and more other options can come in, and that's the game. That's the big game. It's great what I know, but I'm more interested in what I don't know. I'm more interested
where I'm going than where I've been.
That's right. And where I'm going, if I'm not paying attention diligently to crafting it anew and sensing it anew, will be a replay of where I've been. And so that becomes a big part of the awareness, is that, wow, I talk about this a lot in my work, because I talk in terms of patterning, where I'm sort of a pattern detective. Like I go, wow, that's a pattern. Not to, make the pattern wrong, but just to know, oh, I'm fixating again. And can I loosen that in service to something, that's on the other side of it? Something cool that wants to emerge. So we follow these threads of fun and joy and play and things that are, going to up the juice, as it were, the qualities of exaltedness. And you ran through a whole list. You were really quick earlier about that list of felt sensations, vibratory qualities.
Well, what I'm exploring is the relationship of those qualities with the experience that I have, with experience itself, with causality itself. And it's increasingly clear to me that if I am attuned not to the stories, not to the if-thens, not to the and so on and because, but if I am attuned simply to these various states, then they will show up in my life almost immediately. And that's certainly true in dream states. When I'm lucid in my dreams, if I am feeling optimistic, if I'm feeling joyful, if I'm feeling exuberant, the dream state lifts to it's a mirror of something that is from the inside out. But that's also increasingly clear to me in my day-to-day living, that the fixing of the self, there's a place for that. There is a place for that. And then just maybe we can get, we do enough personal work so that some of the places where we fall out of, of the highest expression of our character, where we dial in on what are elevated values, and we begin to put together handcrafted life, that on the shoulders of that, we can become empowered to choose these states, these moods that are themselves causal.
I love it. What's fascinating? I listened back to, not the whole show, but I listened back to a little bit of the show we did with Dawa when Inga Canfield came on with him. Yeah. And that point you just made was a thread of what we talked about. The thing about this show is it is just one long conversation.
It's a loop. It just keeps, It's a spiral. It just keeps spiraling around and
Tune
around.
in whenever you want, wherever you want. It'll
no beginning.
No beginning, and we surely
But
don't.
there is an end, and I think we've come to it.
I don't know. That would be up
Did
to
we
our
come to the
engineer.
end, Chief?
No, man.
Wow, 3 minutes.
What the heck are we going to talk about for
I'm
3
gonna
minutes?
have a nap.
Barnet's ready to go to sleep.
have a nap.
Sleeping, not good for radio.
Not
Not good for television or
How
anything,
about this
frankly.
thing about the local trio from our town here, according to the paper here, that's going to give talks at the UFO event.
Nice. We'll show up.
You want to go to that?
Sure, why not? We need to do more activities. We kept threatening to take an acting class with our guy.
Yes, we're going to do that.
God, I blanked
I
on
don't
his
know
name.
when, though.
I know that's the challenge. So this is actually a good segue because one of the things that I'm aware of with those states, there are certain activities that are setups for those good arenas to activate those kinds of things, right? So like an acting class, anything I don't do usually kind of helps me snap out of my fixations, my little ways that I organize around creating safety for myself, or at least creating
So you're saying fun and adventure?
fun adventure, anything
nature
creative.
Nature is a big activator.
Nature's huge.
Nature is a big activator.
Yeah,
of
especially if
that.
you're doing something in nature. You go surfing.
I haven't been for ages.
Yeah, but that's an activator, right? You know you're going to come out feeling different. And it's interesting, too, in the middle of writing is that for me until it's not, right? When I start worrying about deadlines, I start getting distracted, what it has to be, I can get really kind of locked. So I go take a bath, or I go for a walk, or I do something that gets me out of my head, you know, and then I come back and it's all clear. And all I do before I do the activity is set the intention to get clear. And it's not an efforting, it's just okay, I'm going to go get clear by letting go of it all.
What do you mean by clear?
Well, so
What does that
look,
mean?
there is, maybe it comes from outside of me, or maybe it comes from inside of me, but whatever I'm working on, the thread that is honest, I've said many times with acting, what I care about with acting is that it's honest. Which
you can be a honest psychopath. Too,
Yeah. Okay.
So-
We won't go running down that for too long, but there is a quality in the giving myself to it without thinking my way through it. As an actor, the language, you're in your head, was really problematic. It means you're thinking the role versus just experiencing it, giving yourself to the moment and seeing what happens.
So you're talking about being triggered in a way that you lose your inner direction.
Yeah, and overthinking and over-efforting, and the opposite is just to put the clutch in, to go do something that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to accomplish. And then when I come back to it, it's very easy. I only make it hard. I make it this effort thing because I get fixated on how it's supposed to look. I start worrying about what's supposed to look or whatever. And so my job is to have outlets so I can activate those frequencies that are more creative. Period.
Beautiful.
End of sentence.
I think we're going to activate
our
farewells
go
now.
button. All right.
So farewell to all of you. Thank you for listening. We invite you to listen to other programs if you haven't already tuned into some of our other shows, to like us on Facebook. We have a Facebook presence. And to tune in again next time. Thank you.